Hey, Chris?
They could come forward and say, I want to be such.
Okay.
But yeah,
Yeah.
I don't have all the answers.
Chris? Somebody grab Chris back there. Back up.
It's right there in the corner behind you, Chris. I'm glad you asked.
Okay.
So we're mayorless? Are you doing?
Let me just.
It's mine done coat. See it.
I don't see it.
Let's get started with this public hearing. I'm going to call this public hearing to order, and let's start with the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Now, this is a public hearing in order to discuss the town's master plan. The purpose of a public hearing is basically for the town council to hear from the citizens what they think about the master plan. The public hearing is not really a question-answer session. The council or the mayor are not here to answer questions. We're here to get input from you, because this was developed by the town's Planning and Zoning Commission, and it's been sent to the council for approval, so we want to hear what you think about it. Some of the council members may have questions, so when you come up to talk, we may ask you a question. Feel free to answer it, but you should direct comments to the council, not really questions. We're not here to answer questions about the master plan. The mayor will be here probably in about 40 minutes. He actually had some town business that came up that he had to rush and take care of, so he's not skipping out on us. He's doing other town functions, which when you're the mayor come up quite often. Do we have, back to town staff, do we have a guess of total number of people we have who signed up?
How many times to talk here?
About how many? 25 to, we have 25 to 30 people who signed up? To speak. Okay, so about 20, so rough estimate about 30, 35 people signed up to speak? Okay, so if we figure on this meeting lasting about 2 hours, that gives everybody about 4 or 5 minutes. And we will try and hold you to that. So try and limit your comments to that. We are also going to try and take the properties as a group. So that's one of the reasons you were writing down what you wanted to talk on, because rather than having somebody come up here and speak about one property and the next person about another property, next person about another property, we're going to take them as a group, and we're also going to take the most popular ones first. So as many of you as possible can go home as soon as possible. The most popular one is the Carnival Grounds, which we are sitting in, thanks to the fire company, which lets us use their building for these meetings. So I'm going to start down the list of people who requested that they speak on the Fireman's Carnival Ground topic. They are in no special order other than this first one, and that is Oscar Baker. I know Oscar didn't want to stay real late, so Oscar, I'm going to call you first. Oscar has, over his many years of service to the town, in my opinion, earned the right to get a first shot at everything.
Thank you so much. I wanted to give you a little background on why we're not talking about if it's zoned commercial selling the ground. As you know, a lot of people have gone around talking about the ground's going to be sold to big box people if we change the zoning, and that's not far from the truth. Going back to, well, let's see, 1927, was the first carnival we had up in Wildwood Park. And that went on till 1950. And then Mr. Brown wanted that ground because he wanted to build a building there for his son-in-law to sell Todd seed corn. And that's where the daycare center is today. So we, in 1950, were out of a place to have a carnival. And believe me, without the carnival, especially in those days and even now, we could not survive because that was our biggest moneymaker. And when you're a volunteer company like we were at that time, no additional funds coming in from anywhere because the town didn't start giving us money until later on. And now they do a nice job of helping us out with 10% of the tax base. But anyway, back in 1950, we had no place to have a carnival. Our chief at that time was Mr. Herman Beck, and he owned the ground on a farm where down Center Street, all the way down Center Street. Incidentally, that's where I was born in 1922. But anyhow, he owned that farm, and he said we could have some of his ground for a carnival. And we did have one there for 2 years over where the swimming pool, the town swimming pool is. We had it back there. Of course, back then, most of Twin Arch Road was still dirt from about where the bypass is now. Anyway, we had the carnival there 2 years, and then we started looking for ground. So one day I lived on Park Avenue at that time, and one day I was walking down Park Avenue and saw Mr. Charlie Webster sitting on a porch. That's the same house where the veterinarian is now. Doc has his business there. And I went up to the porch and talked to him and his wife for a little bit, and said that we were looking around for some ground to have for a carnival. Would he consider selling us some? No, he didn't think so. Well, he had a farm there then, 46 acres, and it was grown up and hadn't been used for many years. It was getting grown up all over the place. Had an old barn on it and a couple of other buildings. So about 2 weeks later, he walked up to my house, and he said, the madam and I have talked this over, and we want you boys to have our ground. He said, but you take the whole 46 acres for $13,000. And I hope that's not too much. Well, I said, well, I don't know. At that time, you know, we didn't have anything. I said, what's your stipulation? He said, only one, and that is that you don't pay us all at one time. And we didn't have anything, so we couldn't pay him hardly anything. So we worked out a deal where we would pay him so much each carnival, depending on how good our carnival was, until we had it paid off. But from that time on, we have used this ground. Well, you see what's used today. If anything, it's already commercial. You don't have to change the zoning. It's already commercial. But it's used almost 2/3 of the time each month. The guy gives a report each month at our meeting about how much money was taken in for the use of the grounds, for the use of the building, and for the use of the grounds in the building. And it helps to save us from going bankrupt, really. And then Jimmy Linton will talk to you about the amount of money that we made on the carnival this year, which was outstanding. But we couldn't do without this place. And what the point I want to make is, anybody in their right mind certainly would know that we could not operate business as we do today without this ground. No way possible. If this ground would be sold or taken out from under us, that would be the end of our activity. And just think what your tax bill would be then if the county had to take it over. And someday they probably will, because volunteerism is quickly going out the window. I hate to say that, but there's too many other things taking the place of the young people today to sign up to ride on the back of a fire truck and wave at their buddies going down the street with a siren blind. That don't make any sense anymore. That's the way it used to be, but not anymore. So the point, I'm not going to take a lot of your time. The point I want to make is that for the last 70-some years, I've been a member 73 years, we just could not do without this ground. No way in the world. There's no way that we could still operate and still call ourselves a volunteer fire company. And you have other companies in the county the same way. They depend on that extra ground to make their funding and to pay off their bills. So without any further ado, I just wanted to make that point to you from the history of where we got this and how important it's been to us all these years. Thank you.
Thanks, Oscar. Up next, Dan Caola. know I've seen Dan here. There he is. So do you want me to just skip your name?
Yeah, you can go, I'll go next after him.
I want to go after, well, I've got these in no particular, so you guys want Bruce to go next? Is that coming from the fire company? All right, I will, since you guys are the property owners, we'll call Bruce next.
Good evening. First off, I'd like to enter into testimony email that was given to me from the Mount Airy Lions Club from the president expressing their support for the rezoning of the carnival grounds.
Thank you.
They couldn't be here tonight. I also would like to make it clear that I will be reading from written testimony tonight, and a copy of which will be made available to the council and the press and the public to lessen the likelihood of misquoting and distortion of facts. When the Mount Airy Volunteer Fire Company embarked on the journey to have our carnival grounds rezoned commercial over 20 years ago, we never imagined that such a simple and direct request would result in the current turmoil in our community. It was never our intention to create angst or pit neighbor against neighbor. As a community-based organization dedicated to serving the public, our intention in requesting this change was to bring the carnival grounds into compliance with their actual usage and that of surrounding properties. And as we have said repeatedly, not to sell the grounds once the zoning was changed. Tonight, I would like to address two areas of concern. The first is to answer the question, why? Why request a zoning change? Our first and foremost reason is to bring the grounds into compliance with their actual usage. This property is obviously not being used for residential purposes, and a carnival grounds is not an allowed usage in a residential area. All the structures you see on the grounds, as well as this building, exist because the fire company has been granted a zoning variance. Future building and renovations are contingent upon continuing to receive such a variance. Rezoning to community commercial would eliminate the need for such a variance. Additionally, it is obvious that the usage and zoning of the surrounding properties has changed greatly over the past 60 years. The east side of Route 27 is no longer undeveloped farmland as it was in 1954. At present, the grounds are surrounded, with the exception of a small portion that abuts Conestoga, by commercial and industrial zone properties, a fact recognized by the Planning Commission and reflected in the draft 2014 master plan. From a purely planning perspective, it makes complete sense to rezone the carnival grounds commercial. The second issue I would like to address is the concern expressed by many town residents concerning the sale of the carnival grounds. As the fire company has repeatedly said, the grounds are not currently for sale. Does this mean that the fire company may never sell the grounds? Absolutely not. That possibility will always exist. I repeat, that possibility will always exist. But the question that really needs to be asked is, why would the fire company sell the grounds? To answer that question, you need to understand the value of the grounds to the fire company. In the 1990s, when we built a new fire station, the grounds were used as collateral for our loan. Thus, the grounds, in and of themselves, are a valuable asset to the fire company, and one that needs to be properly managed. What would be the financial benefit to the fire company if the grounds were sold? That's a pretty open-ended question and depends on a number of variables, some of which are beyond the control of the fire company. At present, we gross about $150,000 from activities on the grounds, mainly the annual carnival. Assuming we sold the grounds for $12 million, a figure much less than that quoted by Mr. Pyatt, And at today's interest rates, we would just about make that much per year in interest. Of course, we could tap into the principal, but then again, that is not the unlimited source of funds that it may seem. Given that an ambulance now costs $250,000 and is replaced every 3 years, along with the fact that an engine costs $500,000, a rescue squad $750,000, and a ladder truck $1 million. And even though we have resisted using fundraising dollars to support paid personnel salaries, continued growth in the area, as well as the decline in volunteer responders, means that the nest egg would most likely need to be tapped in the future to provide proper staffing for emergency responses.
Bruce,
And all this is predicated.
You're at 5 minutes, Bruce.
Okay, I think it's important that I continue, and I'll ask one of our members to
That's what I
yield
was gonna
his
ask.
time to me so that I may continue. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
And as this is predicated on the fact that the public will still support us financially, knowing that we have millions of dollars in the bank. A more realistic scenario would be a collapse of support for our annual carnival, either by the public or the many members, family members and friends, and community volunteers that come out each July to make this most important fundraising event a reality. So far, for 60 years, that has not been a concern. Community support and carnival staffing remain strong, supported in some cases by 3 or 4 generations of the same family. And no one knows what the future will hold for volunteer emergency services in the county. Will Carroll County go the way of surrounding counties and phase out support to volunteer companies in favor of a paid service? Will there come a time in the future when the Mount Airy Volunteer Fire Company ceases to exist? And what will happen to the carnival grounds then? As a nonprofit organizations, our assets would have to be transferred or distributed to another or other nonprofits. No, we can't sell the grounds, the station, and the apparatus and distribute the money among the members. The most likely scenario is that the grounds will be transferred to the town. But let's hope none of us here now has to realize such a scenario. 2 other things worth noting. Some have questioned why rezoning the grounds to commercial would change their property value and hence tax liability. As a nonprofit, we do not pay taxes on property used exclusively to provide a service or fundraising. Second, we are committed to offering the town first right of refusal if the grounds are offered for sale. We understand that it is illegal to enter into an MOU with the town, but we still plan to honor this offer. And finally, let me say one other thing. In the 2003 master plan, we again requested rezoning, but were denied by the Planning Commission. Since that time, the Twin Arch area has seen the completion of the towns of Mount Airy, continued expansion of the industrial park, opening of the Mount Airy College Center, and most recently, the Goddard School. Yet the fire company's request for rezoning is being attacked as causing too much traffic and overloading of the Twin Arch Route 27 intersection. I think that horse has already left the barn. Thank you for the opportunity to comment, and please feel free to contact me for additional information and the facts related to the fire company's rezoning request.
Thanks, Bruce. Who from the fire company wants to yield their time for that extra time?
Or you're just gonna pick one?
Huh? Okay, got you, Rick, thanks. Dan, you're up next.
Peter, you may want to call who's on deck too, to speed stuff up.
And Brian Compton is on deck after you, so,
All right, well, I'm going to be nice and quick. So.
okay.
Good evening. My name is Dan Caola. I own 2 businesses in downtown Mount Airy, Old Town Restaurant and Old Town Catering Company. I've been a member of the fire company for 6 years. I serve on the board of managers and as the carnival chairman here. My testimony this evening is to support the rezoning of the property at 1008 Twin Arch Road, known as the Carnival Grounds. As one of the younger members of the fire company, I support the fire company's request, knowing that the grounds are not sold, for sale, or planning for development. Our carnival is the backbone of our fundraising each year. We use the facilities there to raise funds to improve emergency services for our community. The grounds are also used by the community for many other commercial functions such as car sales, yard sales, training seminars in schools, election venues, and many more. I support the change of the zoning of the carnival grounds.
Thanks, Dan. Brian Compton. And after him will be Roxanne Hemphill, wherever Roxanne is. So there she is. So be prepared.
Good evening. I want to thank you guys for letting me come here and share my thoughts. I've been a resident of the town for 10 years, over 10 years. I've volunteered, commissioned the football programs here in town, and I'm currently the president of MAYA, Mount Airy Youth Athletic Association. We're here in support of the fire department's decision to rezone to commercial. We've garnered a very good relationship with the fire department, and in all of our dealings with the fire department in my 10 years within the program, specifically over the past 2 years in my capacity as president, can only base our decisions on what they've told us regarding their determination not to sell at any time in the near future. For everybody that's here, if you understand, we utilize these fields here as the sole source of our fields for both our football programs, our baseball programs, our cheerleading programs, some other programs also use it, our soccer and lacrosse programs. Without these fields, we'd have nothing. As those that know that sit on the Park and Recs board, we're constantly fighting for field space within town and around town. We would never support this decision if we thought that it would mean that we would lose the fields, but we also understand and honor the reasoning that whether it is commercial or residential, they have the right at any time to pull those fields from us. Of course, they'd have a lot of people within town to answer to, but we have to understand and support them in their decisions simply because they've supported us. We understand where they're coming from. Although we would not like to see them sell it, we understand where they're coming from with the intentions of swapping to a commercial standard or zoning. But we just want you guys to understand where we're coming from. One of the biggest questions I'm faced with as the president of the organization is, what are you guys going to do when they sell? I don't know. Hopefully we never have to answer that question. But the fact is that we could answer that question if it was, what if you don't have the fields tomorrow, whether they were zoned commercial or residential. We can only continue to have an excellent relationship that we have with them. They've continued to support everything we've done. They've continued to support any request for improvements that we've asked to make, and some of them are long-term improvements from batting cages to improvements to our turf fields and the facilities. And we see that they're continuing to make improvements at the fields that suggest that they have no interest in a quick sale or a sale within the next 10, 15, 20 years. I hear everything that they have to say about this being a sole source of income, not a sole source, but one of the major sources of income for them. For us at MAYA, for our football, baseball, cheerleading programs, it's our only source of fields. We have a lot to lose, I guess, as well as they do, but I just want to come here tonight to answer the question that, like I say, somebody asked me, do I support it? We have to. They support us. In return, we support them, and that's, basically what we have to do. Yes.
Scott?
Only question I had, does MAYA pay for any use of the fields?
We have entered into agreement with them, yes, that we offer some compensation back to them yearly.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Roxanne? And James Linton is after Roxanne. I know I saw him somewhere.
My name is Roxanne Hemphill. Short of about, I'd say, 4 years. I've been a resident here in Mount Airy for 60 years. I know I don't look that old, but the only thing that I have to say is many times I've had to have the fire company come to my house. And I trust my life, my parents' life, with them, my life in their hands. So when they tell me that they're not planning to sell the carnival grounds at this time, I put my trust in them solely because they have come to my aid many times, and that's all I need to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Roxanne. All right, Mr. Linton. And Jerry Shaw is up next. Okay. One more for fire. Okay.
Good evening, Mr. Councilman. Thanks for listening. My name's James Linton. I'm treasurer of the Mount Airy Fire Company. And when it comes to numbers, Bruce had laid out a few things. I just want to reiterate a couple things we do have happening. And the reason for rezoning is more or less, it's right here in the papers that I picked up back there in that desk. It says for shopping, we have a craft fair and a flea market. It says for service, the fire company provides a lot of services up here. Office, the University of Maryland for Carroll, Frederick, and Howard County rents the basement of this activities building for the MIFRE Extension Office. And entertainment, that speaks for itself. An awful lot of entertainment up here with the carnival. The couple numbers, I'm going to detail just a couple things here. The payroll for the fire company. We received $308,000, we will this year, 2014-15, from Carroll County. $160,000 hopefully from the town of Mount Airy for a total of $468,000. Our actual payroll just ending June 30 of this year was $648,000. That's 24/7 service with 3 people and 1 EVOD driver during the day. So we were short $180,000 in payroll. 5 years ago, our payroll was $478,000. $170,000 increase in 5 years. These are the things we're faced with. The budget this year was $532,000 is what we submitted to the county. I serve on the county budget committee, and our actual expenditures were $564,000. We were short $32,000 there. Not because we didn't want to. We fought like heck to get the monies from the county, but that's what the budget committee allowed. So we also spend between $30,000 and $45,000 over our budget as a result of not getting everything we can from the county. Vehicle payments. We've got 3 vehicles that are under payment schedule right now for $146,683 a year. That's what we have to come up with for that. So put that with the shortfall on the payroll. We have 10 emergency vehicles. We have a total of 15, 10 are emergency, and the depreciation on those vehicles, we need to put aside $230,000 a year to be ready to purchase the next vehicle replacement. That's based on today's cost. As in 1995, our engine 12 was $250,000. The engine 12 that's sitting out here 15 years later was $540,000. So these are numbers that we can't even guesstimate at. So with the payroll shortfall, the budget override, and the vehicle depreciation, we need $442,000 a year. That's not the budget. That's just the other monies that are needed to keep the company going. So the income, you heard Bruce mentioned, and Oscar, the carnival, this year we haven't closed the book out, will be about $120,000 profit. Building use, $47,000. Grounds use, $25,000. And with their wing feeds, dinners, bingos, $18,000. So we'll have $210,000 income coming off of these grounds, pretty close. So the thing is, even with all that, and we can play games, numbers, tell you all this kind of stuff, but the fire company, please understand, is made up of a lot of diversified people. We've got nurses, we've got policemen, we've got engineers, we've got doctors, we've got many, many different walks of life that run the fire company. Mr. Strong spoke to me earlier this year, referenced if the fire company got into trouble without the sale of the ground, call them, see what the town might be able to do to help. The fire company is an independent corporation. We like to hold our hand out and we get help from the community. But as far as trying to solve a major problem as to, oops, we're going downhill, that's not something the fire company will do. The fire company will work its source out as it does with a big fire and with the help they'll call from other communities. So we don't want to burden anyone else. And at the same time, we don't want to lose the carnival grounds to a sale. It's as the numbers dictate, it's needed. It's not something, and the only way it wouldn't work is if we did not have the community support. And that's something we have. If we sold it, that $12 million in the bank at 2% interest is $240,000 a year. So that's not going to cover, you heard the numbers here. You know, we need a whole lot more than that to maintain this company. So it says in the zoning what it should be. We ask that that's what it be, only because we have to plan for the way out future. If it was up to Jimmy Linton, this place would always be a town park, even if the fire company couldn't operate. If the county takes over, the people that have donated to this grounds over the years since 1954 are the people that are the owners of this ground, sharing with the fire company. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jimmy, if I could just ask a question for confirmation. And I think it's really important for everybody in the community to know. Approximately 40% of your calls are in Frederick County, correct? Plus or minus?
Chief, it's pretty close, isn't it? Well, I know Assistant Chief is. Pretty close to 40% are in Frederick County.
And Frederick County government provides what to the fire company?
Nothing.
Nothing. So for the folks here who live in Frederick County, realize that Carroll County provides $308,000 from Carroll County property tax revenue to the fire company. Frederick County provides nothing. And that's an issue I know that council's been working on, but if folks here who live in Frederick County on the Mount Airy side, we could use the help telling your county commissioners they need to pony up their fair share to help out the fire company.
And if I might add to that, when Mayor Jerry Johnson was in office, I went with him as treasurer of the fire company to Winchester Hall for a public hearing. And we sat there and explained to the people that were trying to tax those people that live on the Frederick County side of Mount Airy, that Mount Airy Fire Company is the responsible fire service, ambulance service in that area because it's inside the town limits. We won that fight and there was no taxes. If you notice, as years have gone by, they created a suburban and an urban tax for fire. Well, as that went by and some of the companies in the county didn't want it, some took it, well, finally the county took over, they got rid of the title fire tax in Frederick County. Mr. Blaine Young then comes back and calls it a general tax. So the people on the Frederick County side of Mount Airy are now being taxed. And we had witnessed from our letter, our photo fund drive we have, our letter solicitation, we saw a decrease in funds from those people on that side of the town. And understandably so. They're looking, hey, we're paying a tax. We've got our own firemen that live on that side that have paying $300 to $400 more in tax. So the town has done real good in keeping it going. So
I think the mayor has a question.
Yeah, this is really not the venue to discuss the taxes, but since it did come up, I do want to point out.
It was actually asked by a councilman. so
Absolutely it
that's-
was. It
And
absolutely was.
we did suffer a result of fundraising as far as the fire company as a result because the money's going to Frederick County.
No doubt. The point I was trying to make was, we did meet with the fire company to try to remedy
Right.
that situation as
Oh,
well.
yeah, and we were still putting numbers
We stand
together.
ready today to continue that fight for you.
Right, the town has come up and met with us to work on this problem. But
You're not going to get away that easy. I see Bob King has questions.
Yes, sir.
And I want to jump to the defense of the Frederick County people. Mount Airy, 10% of our property tax goes to support of the fire company, and 40% of that 10% comes from Frederick County side. Okay, so the Frederick County people do pay something towards the maintenance of the fire company.
Right, but
Okay.
the rest was deterred. The other part of that is, and yes, and the town, you know, not to
Right.
say, all the towns, serving on the budget committee in Carroll County, we got 14 fire companies. Town of Mount Airy is the best
Right.
in support of the local fire company from all the other communities in the town, and we, or in the county. And we, the fire company, thank you very much for that.
Thank you. Jerry? And up next is Doug Alexander. I know Doug's back there.
Good evening. I'll be brief. Gerald Shaw, 38-year town resident, born and raised, residing on Buffalo Road in the very house I grew up in, on property that's been in my family for generations. I'm an active 20-year member of the MAVFC. This does not include about 3 years I spent as a junior member, not to mention all the time I spent around the firehouse growing up with my dad, who was a life member and significant fundraiser for the MAVFC. Many of those funds raised on these grounds and within these walls. I have served in almost every operational officer position up to and including chief, and have served on the board of managers. My great uncle was a past chief. My grandmother and 2 aunts served tirelessly for many years in the auxiliary, and I have several cousins who are current members. Since 1954, much like Mr. Baker said, the MAVFC has provided these grounds for community use and have no plans to sell or develop the grounds. Despite several requests and/or offers over the years, the MAVFC has not sold the grounds, nor have they sought interest in the sale of the grounds. The request for rezoning is nothing new. A request has been made numerous times over several years. That in and of itself should be enough to show there are no ulterior motives or hidden agendas. Rezoning the carnival grounds just makes good sense and is merely a step in the right direction. Needless to say, my personal connection with this town, this company, and these grounds runs deep. I ask you to do the right thing, support the MAVFC, and rezone the carnival grounds. Thank you.
Thanks, Jerry. Doug Alexander's up next, and after him, Melissa Garner.
Good evening. I, for one, am tired of being called a liar. That's pretty much why I'm standing here tonight, because I'm tired of being called a liar. I don't know how you can stand and call somebody, or 150 of us, liars. But that's what's being done. So I just wanted to get that out in the clear before I even started. As you've seen tonight, we have the younger members of the fire company that are very much in favor of keeping this carnival grounds, just as many of the older members, such as myself, are. I've lived in this town for 63 years now, and I intend to stay here for another 63 if I can make it that long. I don't know what I'd do without this carnival grounds, quite honestly. My mother informed me the other day that I'd been to every carnival that's been held in this town since the first carnival, or since I was born, rather, not since the first carnival held. Oscar wasn't even here for that. So carnival means a lot to me, you know, just because it is what it is. And certainly we are not in any market to sell this carnival grounds. You've heard the financial people tell you the financial reasons why we want to keep this carnival grounds. It's imperative that we keep this carnival grounds. We don't operate without it. I'm sure I heard somebody in the back while some of the conversation was going up here, so I'll speak to that real quick. Where did we come up with a $12 million figure for the carnival grounds? Well, we had one of our local realtors research grounds that have been sold in the area comparable to our grounds, and that's where we got the figure. We had a couple of them from different areas that were being zoned commercial. One of them was like 28.5 acres at $5 million for one. And then there were some other smaller properties that if you multiply it out, you come up, I think the top figure was just under $12 million. So that's where the $12 million figure came from. Keep in mind that the county provides us a healthy budget each year, which we appreciate. The town provides us with a healthy budget every year, which we appreciate. But we got to remember that we have to raise all the capital funds for our fire apparatus and our buildings. We have to raise every nickel of that to keep those buildings going. The county budget that we get is earmarked for operational funds. There is nothing in there for capital improvements. As Jimmy said, the community has helped us to pay for and maintain these grounds over a lot of years. And I don't think that I, for one, could not look the community in the face as a whole if we were to just bail and sell this carnival grounds. They helped us obtain this grounds. They're the ones that use this grounds. They're the ones that appreciate this grounds. Lord, I started playing ball here on the other end of these grounds when I was a kid. I mean, I just can't fathom why somebody would accuse us of having an ulterior motive of selling this grounds. I mean, I'm looking every one of you guys in the eye up here because what I'm telling you is what I know. And I'm willing to look each one of you in the eye and tell you that because we are not going to sell this grounds. I have a whole bunch of other stuff to say, but I better not. I get too emotional. Thank you.
Thanks, Doug. Melissa Garner. Okay. Dave Pyatt's up next. And Sean, I think it's Happel, is up after that. Dave?
Thank you, Peter. I'll start with a brief history. I think Oscar Baker spoke first. I've only been here since 1977, so I still have the saran wrap on my hair compared to Oscar. But he did come to me in the early 90s as a neighbor and asked me to build up the town's ball fields, which I did. At that time, the council liaison was actually a department head. I don't know if, Peter, you remember that or not. And Oscar just said, please build up the fields for Maya. I did that. I worked very diligently. We even got in a lawsuit. But I think it was always understood that that was being done to sort of ease them from the issue that came up from the Maya president, that they had to sort of wean themselves from the fields. There's a difference in what the property is worth. and I think I've heard the $12 million figure. The years on the council, 24 years, there were several offers, and it was kind of a hush-hush whisper thing, but I think it was in the 25 to 30 range, although that was very informal. 2 years ago, I approached a big box property acquirer. This is a gentleman who acquires property for a chain store, and it's one across the street. And I just said, okay, what is that property worth, the 36 acres? He said, and I quote, "I wouldn't take less than 30 million for it." That was his quote. I think at that level of play with that kind of money, it's a poker game. So when I put some estimates in my letters to the paper, the 30 to 40 was based on how well you paid the poker game. But I just think that, you know, I mean, these are not my numbers, I'm just passing that along. I never said, or I don't believe that this should be denied at this time. I just said in previous statements that we should hold up until we have a better feel for the traffic situation. It was already, I think, I've read some articles that Route 27 and Twin Arch Road is probably the most dangerous intersection in the country, or one of the most. And there was a news article on this. And I don't buy the argument that the horse is already out of the barn, let's not worry about it. The petition. Do you guys remember that I brought a petition to the council in August? Okay.
We do have that.
Okay. I met with Councilman Everidge before the Planning Commission meeting on June 30th. We discussed it. I presented a paper. Chris, on July 1st, sent me an email. He stated, "We differ on the fact that if the master plan approves the Carnival Ground rezone, they get an easy path to a Home Depot. Pank abandoning his effort is a good example of how hard it will be to develop. But to differ is good. We need opposite opinions to make sure we don't screw up the town." That's what Councilman Everett said. I took that as, you know, we had a meeting of the minds. This is what stemmed or was the basis for the petition. I will say for the record, we've had a lot of he said, she said, you know, who's fibbing and who's not fibbing. I did not tell people that it was going to be a shopping center. I said that was a possibility. That was also acknowledged by the fire department representatives. I took that petition around to as many people as I could. It was the summertime. Weather was hot. A lot of people were away, but I still got 500 signatures. And I stated that I could probably have received a couple thousand. You pick a number. 75% of the people I talked to had grave concerns. And I believe that why this room isn't full tonight is that these people all signed the petition. The senior center, to a man, to a person, signed that petition. I didn't get to every house because of, you know, vacations and stuff. But every person I approached at the senior center signed the petition.
That's 5 minutes, Dave, so if you got like a closing comment, go ahead. But
Okay, so really, I guess that's a good time to end it.
okay, thanks. Sean Happel. Did I get that right? Yes, sir. Okay, thanks. And Heather Hobbs, Michael's up next.
Good evening, gentlemen. I'm really shooting from the cuff here. I don't have anything except for notes that I was taking while people were speaking. I'm relatively new to the community. I've only lived here 5 years, not 50 or 60 or anything like that. I'm actually relatively new to the state. My family, my parents were in the military, and so I've moved around the country, and Maryland has only been my home for about, 8 years now. I have concerns. I have concerns over the possibility of losing the fairground. I think everybody that I've heard has agreed on that. As I was listening here, I was hearing different things. A few things were setting off alarm bells. I'll say up front, I have not tracked the politics. I have not done a lot of research. I'm just sitting here listening and hearing a couple of alarm bells. Alarm bell one, the president says, we're not saying we won't sell, we're saying we don't want to sell, but it's an open possibility. That sets off alarm bells for me. I hear a lot of people coming up and saying the fire department has money concerns. That sets off an alarm bell for me. I hear saying we need to rezone because of what's happening out here. I haven't heard anything. Now, I might be ignorant and have completely missed, but I haven't heard any concerns about litigation or any concerns that the county has raised over the use of the land. If the goal is to make sure that there's no possible future litigation, but to make sure that we will have a fairgrounds, could we consider something like creating a new zoning type? The laws are here to serve us. We're not here to be bound by the law. If the laws don't work, let's create a new one. I am an engineer. I work down in Columbia. My wife is a doctor. She works down in Bethesda. Our commutes are horrible. The traffic is atrocious. The drives are long. We live here despite having no family ties here, despite having not been raised up here, for one reason, and that's because we care about our families, we care about our children in particular. We love our children, the ones that we have, any we might have in the future. We wanted to raise them up in a community that has community values, where family is important. The fairgrounds is what put Mount Airy on the map for us. When I talk to my friends in Columbia, they don't know Mount Airy, but they know, oh, that's the place that has the fairgrounds. It put it on the map for us, and it's the reason in a lot of ways why we moved out here. We came to the carnivals, we saw the family values, we saw the children playing, we fell in love with the community spirit here. We don't want to lose that. In particular, we don't want to lose it for the possibility of shopping. I'm not saying that that's what's going to happen, but zoning to commercial, when I just look at the diagrams and I see zoning to commercial, I say, why are we zoning to commercial if not to open up the possibility of that? That concerns me. That's why I'm speaking here. We don't want shopping. We have the TJ Maxx, we have the Walmart, anything that we can't find here in Mount Airy, and my wife can find whatever she wants here, we drive down to Frederick, which is only 15 minutes away, where there's a nice mall.
You drive fast like me. I said, you drive fast like me.
When you've got that kind of a commute, you learn to drive fast. Sorry, I completely lost what I was thinking. We, if we wanted shopping, we can drive down there. What we can't find, and what I would challenge you to find anywhere else in this state, is a town that has a carnival grounds like this. The carnival grounds defines this community, and we don't want to risk losing it. I'll also add something else. I really think that even opening up the possibility of losing it would hurt the fire department in the long run. I feel a sense of loyalty to the fire department here, a sense of loyalty that I have not had in any of the 5 states or any of the multiple towns that I have lived in. I feel that sense of loyalty to the fire department that I did not feel to the fire department in Charlottesville, even though I worked as a volunteer search and rescue worker shoulder to shoulder to that fire department for 10 years. I feel the loyalty to this fire department because of the fairgrounds, because I come to the community events, because I see the community feeling and the outreach for the fire department, and I see the fire department putting on a tremendous show for us and for our children. I really look forward to the day when my little son, who's 3 months old, will be able to come here and attend an Indian powwow, or be able to come here and run around with the rest of the kids for the fireworks. I just want to make sure, whatever happens, that we don't risk losing that. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Heather?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Heather Hobbs-Michael, 1919 Reading Court, 40-year resident of this town, and very proud to say that. I am also a very involved member of the MEA, organization. Both my boys play, and hopefully we will be playing for at least 10 years to come, right, Coach Compton? And I also live now, I grew up on Main Street, but I now live at Twin Arch Crossing, so the subject of the fairgrounds is very near and dear to my heart. I live here, I live on the access road, and then I think about the fire and company, and people in my family helped form this fire company. When I say names to you like Asa Watkins, that's my family. And when I think about the things that have been said and written about this fire company over the past several months, it makes me sad to think that this could happen in my Mount Airy. I see lots of people in the back with engine number 1 shirts on, and I just wanted to come up and say that as somebody who lives in a road that will directly impact this rezoning, I support it because I trust you. I trust every single one of these men and women that have a number 1 on their back. And I think that you all need to do the same because they've never lied to us in the past. I also think that when we talk about backdoor discussions that happened, my father served this community for 36 years on the town council, and he served the fire company as president for 14 years. 17 years, thank you so much. His body does not enable him to be here tonight, but I invite any of you to visit him and ask him of any secret backdoor dealings that went on, because I can guarantee you over my 40 years, the town code was created and discussed around my dinner table. The fire company has been a part of our lives since I can remember. Master plans, as they have gone through, have been discussed around our Christmas trees. And this town and things that have happened in this town are rooted deep within me. And I know what my father knows, and what we know is that to not trust these men and women and to take their focus away from being the wonderful volunteers that they are is a huge travesty, and it needs to stop. So please trust them, listen to what they're saying, and let them do what they need to do to make the fairgrounds work for our town. So, thank you.
Thanks, Heather.
Thank you, Heather.
All right, those are all the comments we have on the rezoning. Well, I see Gary. Gary, you put down you wrote general topics on your card, so you didn't get into any, so your card's actually at the end there, but since you did, so come on up. Yeah, your card just said general topics, so they put you in with the general topic other pile.
It didn't. To tell you the truth, my name's Gary Nelson. I had no intention of coming up and talking about the fire company rezoning. I wanted to, tonight, just to thank the Planning and Zoning Commission for all the work that they did on this. I mean, I'm thinking about the last time it was done in 2003, and there were 3 people in the audience. There's more than 3 tonight. And I'm thinking of the planning that went into it and all of the surveys that went out trying to get input from the community. So I certainly did want to come here and pass on my best to those people who worked so hard on it, including this town staff, Heather and all. A lot of work has gone into this, and I think they got it about 98% right. But I couldn't help but raise my hand to respond a little bit. I heard a lot of comments, a lot of emotion, a lot of angst. The first several speakers were talking about all the angst and hard feelings, and I think when there's a situation like that, there's more than one side to it, and there are genuine people on both sides. One thing that I will take a little bit of issue with is some of the comments that I've heard about people not trusting the fire company and saying that we should trust the fire company. We do trust the fire company. We trust them with our lives on a regular basis. But the fire company also needs to trust the town and to recognize that they are providing an absolutely essential service, and there's no way the town's going to say, well, we're going to let you go downhill and become a second-rate fire department. One way or the other, they are going to be supported, whatever it takes. It doesn't take. There's a lot of alternatives and things that could be done to ensure that the fire company receives their amount of money. The last I checked into this, and I did check into it extensively when I was on the council, our fire department is first rate, the best in the county. It receives more funding per capita than any other town in the county. Hands down. The town, the municipality, pays out tremendous amounts, and it's well-deserved. So there is an accounting that's needed. So as for this area being commercial, no, it's not. This is the Fireman's Activity Center. It's not a commercial activity. Are there things that are done that are making money? Yes, but that doesn't necessarily make it a commercial property. And there are things that can be done, alternatives, to make sure that the fire company is always taken care of into the future. So I hope that there is a mutual respect and trust that takes place as you all deliberate and make your decisions, and that both sides, whichever way it turns out, understand that there are two sides to this issue and it's complicated. That's all I had to say.
Thanks, Gary.
Thanks, Gary. Thanks, Gary.
All right, we've got our,
I was listed as a possible, but I am not going to speak on the behalf of anything else other than this. I'm not sure why my name wasn't called.
okay. What was your name?
Nancy Magone from Vienna.
Okay, I do see, I do have a card here. It says possibly rezoning may ability to continue on the field. So that, I guess that, it didn't. Do you want to, come on up, because I do have, I'll move your card to this pile. It did, because it didn't actually say Carnival Grounds, so it didn't end up in this pile.
That's okay. No, Dr. Nancy Magone, Proviano, business owner in the community, executive secretary for MEA and chair commissioner for MEA. And all I was going to say was that being that Mr. Compton spoke, and I concur with what he says, and I also believe in the integrity of our gentleman's agreement with the fire company and the integrity of the fire company itself, I was going to yield my ability to speak this evening to allow one of the other firefighters to speak if necessary, because they were made to yield a spot earlier this evening.
Okay, well, I guess we have, she has 4 minutes on her time if they want to run somebody up here. I assume one of the officers. I'm guessing Doug and Bruce saying you're fine? Okay, good. Less time used. Thank you, guys. Our next topic is 806 Park Avenue. That's the one right here on the corner. The first two tickets are the O'Briens, Dr. and Mrs. O'Brien. So I don't know whether you want to each speak or whether she wants to let you speak for her. Okay. Okay. Oops.
Good evening, I'm Michael O'Brien. My wife Nancy and I have requested to rezone 806 Park Avenue to community commercial. Although the Planning Commission has denied our request, we think they erred for the following 5 reasons. First, due to substantial changes in this neighborhood, the property no longer fits any practical description of a residential property. The town's own draft master plan identified this intersection as primary commercial. It was a mistake to ignore the significant changes to this neighborhood. In 1988, 2 corners of this intersection were cornfields. The other corner held the carnival grounds with few events. Today, these 3 corners are the hub of significant commercial and nonstop community events. In 1988, Route 27 was a lazy 2-lane road. It morphed to a 4-lane controlled intersections with 2 turn lanes and close to 20,000 vehicles speeding by daily at 50+ miles an hour. At the January 2014 Planning and Zoning meeting, Commissioner Smith opened a discussion saying, and I quote, "This intersection is where community commercial is now, and that's where community commercial should be, end of quote. 2 other commissioners said that it didn't make sense to have 3/4 of this intersection commercial but keeping the O'Brien Acre residential. It was then asserted that our neighbor, the post office, is a residential property that stops business at 5 p.m. Yes, the post office is listed residential, but we all know it's one of the most intense commercial operations in town and open for business 24/7. The Postal Service is the country's largest retail network, larger than McDonald's, Starbucks, and Walmart combined. The residential neighbor of ours has 18 delivery trucks leaving 6 mornings a week for their routes. The first of 5 dispatch tractor trailers arrive at 4 a.m. 9 additional employees arrive starting at 4 a.m., and 7 substitutes are available as needed. Hundreds of customers drive into this residential lot lit daily for counter service or to access the 24-hour mailboxes inside or out. Second, 806 Park Avenue solidly meets the master plan's criteria for community commercial zoning and answers Mount Airy citizens' expressed desires. In the past 2 town surveys, our citizens have strongly asked for more shopping, small business and employment opportunities located where infrastructure exists. Town council members have stated that when they were campaigning, a clear majority of the people they talked to desire commercial development. Third, we have submitted substantial community support. The Planning Commission was mistaken by ignoring or minimizing our extensive support. We presented close to 300 letters of support, including 70% of our neighbors on Park Avenue and the side streets that feed into it, along with citizen testimony at numerous public hearings. Fourth, the Planning Commission erred in using inconsistent policy and reaffirming and recommending other residential properties for community commercial. Planning Commission said commercial zoning should not be located next to residentially zoned property, but then turned around and reaffirmed the Green Spring project and recommended community commercial for the carnival grounds. Both of these properties are located next to residentially zoned properties. Planning Commission also stated that community commercial isn't desired on the west side of Route 27, yet its own 2003 master plan rezoned Center Street to community commercial. Center Street is to the west of Route 27, next to residentially zoned property and about 200 feet north of our property. The major arteries west of Route 27 leading into downtown start with community commercially zoned property, except Park Avenue. It's clearly arbitrary and capricious to treat similarly situated properties differently. Fifth, several other significant mistakes were made by the Planning Commission. The study by David Thaler, an independent, well-recognized Maryland land use expert, is the only in-depth professional evaluation done on 806 Park Avenue. The Planning Commission had that study and ignored it. It was a mistake in February of 2011 for the Planning Commission to rely on misinformation when the Town Council liaison to the Commission, Dave Pyatt, said he knew, and I quote, as a fact, that a developer had talked to 4 or 5 houses on South Park Avenue. They were trying to make a significant block of this neighborhood go commercial. For the record, we have not and are not aligned with any developer. Our request is for our property only. I've asked many neighbors about this mysterious developer. None of them knew anything about such a plan. This inflammatory declaration was harmful not just because it wasn't true, but because it was declared by the council liaison. His position alone added legitimacy to the statement. It irrevocably poisoned the well against our request when it surfaced as the misleading and main point in a petition filed with the town council in opposition to our request. If it wasn't for Mr. Pyatt's unsubstantiated claim, we doubt a petition would have made the rounds in the Wildwood community. To this day, we bear the consequences of this petition as the Planning Commission continues to say there is broad support against our rezoning, even though the vast majority of the opposition was united under this petition and its false premise. Of the 7 properties adjoining ours, only 1 neighbor has voiced any concern. This neighbor is in the Wildwood community behind our property. This neighbor is the least impacted, located down a hill and behind a dense tree cover. This neighbor is one of those who signed their support to this false statement. In another inciting declaration, Sheila Pyatt told commissioners, newspapers, and neighbors that the special exception applying to our property expires and the property returns to the residential when my veterinary practice closes. Her comment's false. Her assertion also suggests that this property is historically residential when it has been used commercially since at least the early 1950s, long before I began practicing there and long before any zoning law existed. We understand that the Planning Commission cannot be the arbiter on all statements made by citizens. However, when involving an unproven statement by a commission member or a specific zoning matter, we feel the Planning Commission has a civic and a moral obligation to set the record straight and not let inaccurate zoning statements go unchallenged. They didn't. By remaining silent, the Commission enabled inaccurate, misleading statements to shape the debate. For us, it puts the objectivity of the Planning Commission into question. In summary, we believe that 806 Park Avenue no longer fits any practical description of a residential property. We believe that the facts strongly demonstrate it meets the town's criteria for rezoning to community commercial. There is substantial community support for our request, and the Planning Commission has made a number of mistakes. In your deliberations, we sincerely hope that you, the town council, will separate the facts from the fiction and the emotion. We hope you will correct the mistakes made by the Planning Commission and amend the proposed master plan to designate 806 Park Avenue for community commercial zoning. For your reference and for the public record, we provided you with a copy of these remarks in our planner's analysis. Thank you for your time. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Stacy MacArthur. Okay. And then I had Clark Schaefer. That was your attorney, did you? I'll defer also. Okay. Next then, Sheila Pyatt. Sheila?
In the Jewish religion, there is a word we use when we describe a righteous person or a person that does the right thing. We call that person a mensch. I'm sorry to say that I can't use this word mensch to describe Dr. O'Brien as a righteous man. When Dr. O'Brien came to the neighborhood through Dr. Full's recommendation, he was first starting out as a veterinarian. We were asked as a neighborhood if he could open up his practice. We all agreed and signed a petition, which then went to the Board of Appeals, and he was given a special exception, with the agreement that when he retired, closed his practice, etc., the property would revert back to residential. I have a copy of the petition and the agreement from the Board of Appeals. I also have a recent letter from Mr. Bard Woodward, who was the head of the Board of Appeals at that time, stating the facts and the agreement. So for about 27 years, the neighbors have lived up to our part of the agreement, except Dr. O'Brien now thinks his property should be rezoned commercial. The neighborhood in the past 20 years has become even more residential with the senior housing and townhomes. We have school-aged children with school buses coming and going each day. Dr. O'Brien in the past has had people talking on his behalf, almost all from areas of town not affected. But none of these people live on Park Avenue or in the surrounding neighborhood. Looking back, I guess you could say we were naive, but the word that comes to mind is trust. We trusted Dr. O'Brien to live up to the agreement. Planning and zoning has rightfully turned him down, so I hope the council does the righteous thing and also turns down his request for commercial. If the council does not turn down his request, then they will have to live with the fact that they have turned a beautiful neighborhood into a commercial zone, which will look like South Main Street and Ridgeville. With an election coming up next spring, we the people will still be living here. Who knows where Dr. O'Brien will be? His new neighbor, who just moved into his house, knew nothing about Dr. O'Brien's intentions and is quite concerned. He has invested a lot of money and is in the process of fixing up his new home. He cannot be here tonight because of a previous commitment. Thank you.
Thanks.
Question, Mrs. Pike, could we get a copy, could the council get a copy of the?
I don't have a copy. I gave it to the planning and zoning that night when I came months ago, and we made copies.
I'm sorry, could you say it for the record, because we're on TV?
I have it with me.
Um,
But you, Chris, I know have a copy because that night when I
Did the
came.
council get a copy?
That I can't answer, but I know planning and zoning has
sorry,
it.
Sorry, Sheila, Ms. Pike, I'll restate my question. Could you please provide a copy of the agreement to the council? I just want to make sure that we get.
Well, Heather should have
I just
it.
want to make sure that we get a copy of the document that you're referencing. It shouldn't come from me. It should come from you to the
Well,
council.
And the petition, I would like to request both.
You should have all of that, because the night,
We're just saying, make sure that we get it, put it all, everything you want us to have put together in a packet and get it to us. All right, that's okay, you did sign up and you didn't use it. You're Mr. Schaefer, right?
Clark Schaefer on behalf of Dr. and Mrs. O'Brien. Mrs. Pyatt has made a very serious allegation, and she has done so apparently without having the backup for it. We knew she would make the allegation because she's made it before.
Well, this is about the property rezoning. It's not about,
Allegations.
people, what they care about. It's why you want this, why this should be rezoned community commercial or not.
Well,
So
what
is
I'm
there
trying to
something
do
for
is respond to the fact that she made a comment as to why the property should not be rezoned,
Okay?
okay? And she used as a basis for that an alleged agreement made by the property owner
Okay.
years ago. I think it's relevant to say that we have researched the entire file of the zoning hearing, including, and I have here, unlike Mrs. Pyatt, I have here the minutes, I have the Planning Commission minutes, I have the Board of Appeals minutes, I have the copy of the written decision, I have a transcript of the testimony that was offered in evidence at that hearing, and in none of those documents can one find any agreement, anything like the agreement that Mrs. Pyatt has represented existed. I think that's an important fact. I have these documents. I'd be happy to provide you with copies of them. They're from your files, so I'm assuming you can get them, but I'd be happy to
They may
make
be in
these
the
copies.
packet Doc O'Brien already gave us, are they? Okay, I would certainly say, just as we asked Ms. Pyatt, package them up, put them in
We-
six
we-
copies, and they'll stick them in our box with the.
We will
with everything
submit them
else.
to you. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks. All right, moving on to our next topic. We have two speakers for the cold storage facility. Looks like, is it Jake Ermer? I'm not sure if that's a C or an E at the beginning. And after him, it looks like Matt Carter, so two of you. Okay.
My name is Jake Ermer, and I'm with the Hogan Companies, and we are a land firm based out of Annapolis. And we like Mount Airy. We think it's got a lot to offer, and we've previously done some work on the cold storage property, taking a look at the potential for redevelopment, and are now getting up to speed with some of the talk about the rezoning to the downtown zone. And I guess the thing that about the downtown zone that in reading the downtown zone, I think that the intent of the downtown zone fits well with the cold storage property, given its kind of walkable connectivity to Main Street. But I also think that some of the commercial requirements on the property are make it a little bit tough to develop. And if I may, basically, it reads that apartments and condominiums can be on the upper floors only. And I think that's entirely appropriate on Main Street, but even if you get half a block off, it becomes extremely difficult to meet a market demand when you don't have that visibility. And I've seen that those kind of codes in other jurisdictions, that the end result has been basically vacant retail storefronts with apartments over top. And I don't think that's necessarily a net positive to the town, or the existing property owners on Main Street. The next point that, with regard to residential development on this property, was the rear-loaded townhome requirement, where the garage is in the back. And again, I think that's very appropriate on Main Street, but another aspect to consider when developing a 7-acre parcel is that there are some hills on it, and when you dictate exactly where the garage entrance has to be, you're creating a situation where as a developer, you're not able to necessarily work with the grades of the property, and it can be more intensive on the environment as far as the amount of earth you have to move so that you can drive a car around back. I think that in general, there's an opportunity with the cold storage property at some point in the future to add to the tax base and create a lot of customers for the Main Street businesses that can be within walking distance. But I think that having a first floor retail or office requirement for any, dense residential development might be problematic, might prevent the development of that property with some residential units in there. And I think that it could also potentially lead to that property sitting vacant for many years, just because it is pretty tough to make that primarily a retail property without the visibility to
We do have a question. Do you want it at the end, or do you want it?
I'm about done. That's about it.
Okay.
So.
Mr. Irmer, the only question I have is that I'm trying to ascertain from everything that you told me is great information about things that you would change about the zoning. Are you for the zoning and having cold storage zoned as downtown commercial, or are you against it?
Yeah, I appreciate you asking me that and helping me get to the point.
I'm just trying to figure out, you gave us lots of, here's what I would change if I could change it.
Yeah, I was assuming DTZ is a concern for you, downtown zone is a concern for you.
I think that the intent of the downtown zone is positive for that property. I think that it is important to have more flexibility within that property, because the way that some of this is written, it's things that are hard and fast rules. And when you have hard and fast rules that may work on Main Street, when you get half a block off Main Street and you're talking about a mixing of retail and residential units, it's not going to play out the same way.
Right, so there's always possibilities for exceptions, and I'm just curious, you're for it then? Just so I can write down.
Yes,
You're for DTZ,
yes, I am
but you
for the
wanna talk
DTZ, but
about- okay, great.
and again, I'm.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Are you representing yourself or the property owner?
I'm representing myself. This is just something that we've had a continued interest in Mount Airy and in this property. Currently, we're not under any active contract or anything like that, primarily because of the water issues in town.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. And you're
Good evening.
Matt Carter?
Yes, my name's Matt Carter. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Alfred Kerman. I represent Marvin Weiner and MHW Realty, the owner of the property, which we're referring to as the cold storage property. If no one knows, it's 3 Hill Street, which is off of Prospect, just off of Main Street, probably less than a mile. I'm going to try and fill it around where Jake and not repeat a lot of what he said, but this is a 7-acre parcel. The current zoning is industrial, and it's proposed that it be changed to the DTZ, the downtown zone. As Jake mentioned, the issue we have with that is that if we're in the downtown zone, the restrictions on residential are that it'd be above retail. And to fill in again where Jake left off, we really think that this requirement in this area would hurt downtown Main Street, because for one thing, on a 7-acre parcel, if you do the math, it would require about 100,000 square feet of retail to build residential full out on that parcel. I mean, that's like a Home Depot, that's not really a workable solution for anybody. So we think that residential is the highest and best use that would really benefit the downtown businesses. And the DTZ helps because it puts a priority category for the water allocation, and certainly we support the rezoning to DC, with the one caveat that we urge and promote the consideration of some sort of mixed-use zone where there could be some sort of different residential requirements for that parcel, be it, whether it's mixed-use with townhouses and apartments, or whether there's some retail or some commercial that is a companion piece to the residential. The storefront, again, is not workable, and the flexibility with a mixed-use zone would really benefit this property benefit the tax base and benefit the town ultimately. You know, if it's properly drafted and carefully considered, as you council folks have put in a lot of time and effort on this comp plan, and it's certainly appreciated. So we're hopeful that we can find a workable solution and work with everyone going forward to come up with something that makes this a real you know, dynamite development for the town. The other option, I guess, would be, if not a new ordinance for a mixed-use zone, would be to somehow remove the property or eliminate from the current DTZ ordinance, and we don't feel like that's a better solution. We feel like that finding a mixed-use zone that works on this property, sort of overlay on the DTZ, would be the best thing for everybody.
So you'd rather have a mixed use than a DTZ?
Well, a mixed use with a DTZ for the purposes of the water priority issue.
Well, I
then,
understand he wants the best of
He wants the
but-
water the DTZ gives, but he wants us to, you'd like to see DTZ shifted a little to allow maybe some more housing options.
right, to have some sort of mixed use or some sort of relaxed residential restrictions, because I think that again, the above retail requirement is really only workable and beneficial for Main Street, because, you know, while we all like the downtown, you know, commercial district to sort of, you know, organically expand, I think that the location of this parcel does not lend itself well to being a companion piece, other than the fact that the residential folks could walk down and appreciate and enjoy all the downtown commercial areas.
I guess the only thing I'll ask you again, just to get a clear answer, is as it is zoned for DTZ, not cherry picking out what you want out of a requirement right now, are you for the way it is DTZ, or would you rather say you're not for it and wait for a mixed-use zoning?
Well, I'm not sure what wait for mixed-use zoning would.
Planning's working on different zonings, mixed-use and OPE zoning. So, and I'm not guaranteeing this property would even qualify for that, but such that right now, they've put forward in their plan that it should be downtown zoning and it falls in the downtown zone area. So I'm trying to figure out if you agree with the way it's worded in here.
As the options are today, industrial or downtown zoning, we would be for the downtown zoning.
Okay.
Typically, our recommendation would be, in a situation like this, is get the downtown zoning and then come in with a text amendment recommending that the downtown zone be changed to allow a special exception
Right.
for slight housing use. Because I understand what you're saying. I think that would probably be the best thing for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Matt, if I could,
Come in with a text amendment.
right, Matt, if I could make a recommendation, since the town, you know, it's in the town's best interest to have the property redeveloped in some fashion that's compatible with the surrounding area, and I don't hear much opposition to doing that. If you could please contact our planning staff directly, Heather's all the way in the back, and talk to Heather and work with her, and because I'm sure as a result of the discussion, Heather will forward to the council perhaps some recommendations.
Okay.
Along the lines of what Councilman Helt and Councilman Strong are suggesting. That's the quickest way to resolve
I'd be happy
this.
to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's Heather in the back. She's the one
Heather,
placing
wave.
the lunch
Okay.
order for tomorrow with Dan.
Great. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, our next topic relates to, this is an annexation topic relating to the Dowd, Spicer, and Springwood properties.
Take 10.
All right, we're going to get a request for a 10-minute break. So let's take a 10-minute break. Anybody? It is 8:26.
School's in session.
We're going to move on to the next topic, which is on one paper it says Dowd, Spicer, Springwood, another one it says Dowd. These are properties adjoining the Nottingham area. First one I've got, it says D. Maria and McGilloway. Okay. Okay, he's next on the list. So okay.
Which one is this?
Dowd, Spicer, Springwood properties.
Good evening, I'm Frank Deitch. I live at 7070 Shadyside Drive, which is adjacent to the Dobbs, the Springwood, the Spicer property.
Is that back up to them? Is it?
One, in the next block in,
Okay.
okay? The neighbor of Maria. We adjoin
Okay.
properties. I just have a couple statements, comments, and questions, I guess, and I know questions aren't the time. But one of the concerns I had was, I'm not sure what the intent as to why the town would like to have that property annexed into the town. I'm not sure what the intent of the property owners are. My major concern is the water. If the town intends to annex in and look for water in our property and drill wells, my concern is it's going to affect my largest investment, which is my home, and could affect my well and all the other property on their wells also. The other concern I have is, Nottingham has 3 accesses to Watersville Road with traffic coming in all day long. Where's the access to this property if it's going to get developed onto Watersville Road? And also the congestion from Watersville Road to Twin Arch to 70 at night is backed up every night from 5 o'clock on, or probably 4 o'clock earlier on. So I'm not sure if the town needs to address the congestion and the road structure to develop it. And then the other thing is, if you annex in, can you guarantee the property owners that their homes won't be affected? And if you can't guarantee that, then how do you annex our properties into that zone? Because we are all part of the Springwood development. And it looks like you pieced out parts of the Springwood development, left some parts out, and put some other parts in, which I didn't understand well. I thought it was a development. Everything happened the same thing with each development. So those are and again, my number one concern is the water issue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Frank.
Next up on that same topic, Roger, maybe it looks like Roger Stone.
Thank you very much. I'm coming somewhat unrehearsed, and I'm just wanted to express some concern making a consistent infrastructure argument as I did when a large contingent from the Nottingham, the fields or the woodlands at Nottingham where I live. I'm a 20-plus year resident of the town. I moved into Nottingham about 4 years ago from elsewhere in the town limits. And I'm also a 35-plus year resident of the zip code. I have interest in infrastructure concerns that were part of what was brought up at a packed meeting when there were plans by a developer to try to develop 10 lots and have the egress to those 10 lots onto Loxley because the county wasn't going to give access for those 10 lots to onto Watersville Road because the lane was too long. And there was an overwhelming opposition that was on the same side of my line of thinking. And so we're being told now that a certain amount of acreage is thought to, that's adjacent to the Nottingham property, the woodlands in Nottingham, is in the master plan to be annexed. And one of the things that we point out about the Nottingham community is it is like an island that's marooned, where you must leave the town limits in order to get back to town limits elsewhere. There is no other egress, for instance, into the Century Boulevard area, so we can actually stay in town. So now imagining, whether it's 50 acres or 100 acres or whatever, imagine a bunch of lots developed during that annexation that puts more pressure onto Loxley. It seems untenable that we would be adding additional lots to a already overburdened single egress out of Loxley Lane. And it might also overflow onto the other areas like Arrowwood. So what my concern about annexing anything adjacent to the Nottingham property is that it might be a very, very good deal for developers and putting the cart before the horse, and it could be kind of a bad deal for the residents of Nottingham who are just now finishing the building of the lots that were left over from the 12 years to develop the woodlands. So I think the town has to very carefully, before it annexes or creates new phases for Catonsville homes, got to look very carefully at the infrastructure issue and realize that that the areas around Loxley Lane is already very overburdened. One other point I'd like to make is being that marooned island of high density population, we are beautifully covered by the town plows in the middle of the winter, and then we get out to Watersville Road, and there's absolutely, no plowing have been done. So I had brought that to Streets and Roads, and my point was, here we are, a situation where we are already with limited egress from the development, as I said, and I think that we should make sure that we look at infrastructure issues before we annex another high density of lots in that area. Last we heard, it was not going to be a very good deal for the town because it was only going to be 10 new taxpayers that were going to be, exiting onto Loxley, and we were doing the developers a favor rather than ourselves. And with that, I yield the floor. Thanks.
Thanks. Just to let people know, just because something shows up on here as a future annexation thing, some of these things have been sitting here for years. This master plan does not get anything annexed. As a matter of fact, some of these things that are shown on here as future annexation areas have been specifically turned down for annexation. So this is just kind of a future plan. Enacting this master plan does not say, oh, this is now part of the town. Pat?
Just want to let you know, the town is working on a memorandum of understanding with the county to get that road plowed during those snows. As far as why the town is considering it, I would urge you to talk to the planning staff to find out some of the rationale, because I'm hearing a lot of, we don't know why. So you should know why.
All right, next topic. I've got two here related to East Ridgeville Boulevard. First up, Andrew Williamson. I saw him.
He was here a minute ago. There he is.
There he is.
Thanks for having me. My name is Dr. Andrew Williamson. I own and operate Chiropractic First. I've been in the town for 14 years. My wife and I have been in the town practicing for 14 years. I'm here in support of the Ridgeville Properties rezoning. I think it's going to be a great thing for the town. I think it's going to really do a nice job as far as cleaning up that area. I have some pictures of, like to pass through, and I'll keep it brief, but the pictures I'd like to pass through are the house that I actually purchased and the house that I put up that I operate my chiropractic office out of. And there was also a picture of one of the houses that could potentially be done into the limited commercial space. There's a lot of potential for these places. I think that they're kind of blight right now, and I think there's some things that go on there that are not very good, and I'll leave it at that. But one of the benefits of what I've done at the property there is, I took it from a residential property to a property where I operate my office out of. And my tax base, from a tax standpoint, the town was getting $1,800 a year for that space. I now pay about $6,000. I know a percentage of that goes to the town as well as the percentage of that goes to the county. From a water standpoint, I use absolutely very minimal because my bill never changed. I get charged the bare minimum, so I never reach that threshold of even being charged. I just get charged the bare minimum. And I think we're low impact, and I think we really did a nice job with, and as you see in the pictures, of what we did to improve that area. And I would like to see it improve even more. So I'll pass these through. And unless there's questions, I'll go ahead and just pass these through.
All right, we'll pass them down, and then we will give them to Lisa to go in our packet. Next up, on the same topic, Brian Cecil.
First, I'd like to agree with the doctor that the house that he took down and what he put up was a drastic improvement in appearance, aesthetics. I think that my concern as a resident just past his business is that we presently have a traffic issue. If anybody's made that trek back into those neighborhoods, it can be treacherous, especially when Superfresh was up and running. And if the intent is to get that shopping center back in business, and the old Blockbuster building, which is standing vacant, traffic will once again become a concern. I'm all for improving the appearance of some of the older houses that do attract the wrong element. We've had issues with that on East Ridgeville, and that's being addressed and but as I've said, my concern is, you know, the business professional that the doctor has presently was a beautiful addition to our neighborhood and that street. I think any attempt to convert that to, say, a light commercial or, you know, I know there's a vacant lot in between him and a residence. Any attempt to, you know, take that property to anything that would bring in a lot more traffic is going to be a big concern to the neighbors that live on East Ridgeville. That would be my first concern, would be the traffic. Obviously, there needs to be a lot more thought put into that before you increase the amount of flow through there. We just recently got a driving school that opened up where the property was vacated. Every weekend they park 20 vehicles around that corner and make it treacherous. I don't know what they're doing, but on the weekends they hold some sort of class there, and it's become a big problem for the residents because that turn gets very narrow when you have cars parked on both sides of it. So anything that you know is done to that area to make it more attractive, more presentable, you know, I'm all for. But the traffic needs to be, you know, priority one. I mean, if there's a way to bring the cars in from a different way than the residents get in, that would be perfect. All for it. Second thing would be obviously our property values. You know, as that area, I mean, there was a concern a while back about building in, you know, industrial or large commercial areas down that road. Anybody that's gone down that road knows it's not a big road. It's a residential street. It's always has been. How in God's name there's dump trucks coming up and down that road, you know, in the morning and in the evening is beyond me, but they do. And how they get around those little S-turns, they must be pretty good drivers. So traffic, property values, I mean, we've got some major concerns. You know, I firmly believe that what the doctor has done has tremendously benefited our property. I think the business professional is very appropriate for that neighborhood, and it's a beautiful buffer between our properties and the commercial properties that are on the main, the gas stations and the Blockbuster buildings and those types. His building is a tremendous buffer. It's a great transition between full-on commercial and residential. And I think that would be, you know, the neighborhood, I can speak for most of my neighbors that, you know, we love having him and his building is gorgeous. It's you know, what we always wanted that lot to look like. Would we want another shopping center? Probably not. Do we want someone knocking down those two little houses that he showed you pictures of and putting in another shopping center? I mean, I guess my last question for everybody would be, does Mount Airy need another grocery store, liquor store, you know, beauty salon, you name it? We've got about 5 of everything. Do we really need more? I mean, in our neighborhood alone, there's at least 8 or 9 vacant spaces. So if the businesses are knocking down doors to get in, there's plenty of spaces to be had. I know Iliano just put up a beautiful building, half empty. So, I mean, you know, I own construction companies. I'm all about building, but it's appropriate building. You know, where buildings belong, let's build them. I'm all for it. I'm done. Thanks,
Brian. Need to get yourself back on streets and roads. Ken's running it now. I see we got a question from Chris.
Brian, some of the proposed rezonings, I just want to see if you're okay with some of the details. The proposed rezonings of the properties that border the neighborhood is neighborhood professional, similar to what the doctor has.
Correct.
That's neighborhood professional, typically a doctor's office with 1 or 2 staff, very limited parking. The hours are limited, basically 8 to 5, no weekend stuff. And then the properties in front of that, the recommended zoning is limited commercial, which is not a large shopping center. Do you, under that scenario, so there's no possibility of a large shopping center like another Blockbusters?
Understood. But once again, if you envision the Cowboy building there,
yeah,
the only way to access those 2 little residences, I assume, is down through that area, which brings you in around the S-turn.
There's like that little court down in there.
The court that, you know, if you'd allow me, I'll knock that down and take that out on the 27, because that would solve a lot of problems. But, you know, anything that's going to bring a lot more traffic in without giving it access other than the same road that all my neighbors share, you know, is going to be a problem. Now, like I said, I'm not here to bash the doctor. He's done a great job, and he has a perfectly appropriate amount of traffic for the neighborhood. No one has had any problems with what he's done. So if your question is, would we have issue with similar properties to his, like I know that the lawyer on the corner has expressed concerns about doing something different with his. I would have concern if it's anything but a business professional on that corner. Because if you've seen his, you know, somebody trying to get up into his property better look in the rearview mirror, because, you know, you're slowing down to turn into his driveway and someo's going to plow right into
Yeah,
it.
he's kind of got that little loop
He's
on the corner.
right dead
there.
on the
I've-
corner.
I've-
That's a
I've pulled
treacherous
in there.
driveway, yeah.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, we're on to our I guess for our miscellaneous topics. These are either ones with no topic on them or ones that were single topics. I had a Lawrence Hodgkiss, annexing Quad County Court. Quad County Court, that's the property by 84 Lumber.
Yeah, I just purchased the property right behind 84 Lumber last year, and we basically just don't want that annexed over there into the town. Don't see no reason for it. And if you're looking for water over there, it's very hard to come by, if that's the reason.
Right, no, yeah, water's not the reason, because as I recall, that's in the watersheds we've already tapped out. If we thought there was water over there, we would be, we would have annexed it a long time ago.
Yeah, I just drilled a 1,000-foot well over there, so there's not much water over there.
But you're for us annexing?
No.
Just to be clear.
No.
You're not?
Against.
Okay.
The question from the mayor was, are they contiguous? They are contiguous under I-70. And that has been allowed to be considered contiguous, as I recall, Tom has told us in previous zoning issues. So they do count. Okay, thanks.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Up next, Mary Jo Burkett. She didn't. All right. Okay, he didn't sign up, so you want him to just take? He's going to take your, okay. Welcome, Dr. Burkett.
Mr. President, Town Council, I know you've seen me. My name is Paul Burkett. I have property on the corner of Route 20, on the northwest corner of Route 27 and Watersville Road. And I promise I'm not going to say a word about signs. No, I think with the advent of the Harrison Leisure property being looked at for annexation, you're probably looking at the property across the street, across Watersville from me, for maybe an upgrade of zoning, maybe to commercial. And the fact that we are going through this master plan right now, I would just like to make a request of an upgrade of some sort in the zoning, because I didn't research this, I didn't know I was going to speak, but I think right now I'm in a grandfather or a special exception of my building on the corner. It is for medical practice only. I would like some sort of an upgrade. I would like to request an upgrade, and maybe either to commercial or something, maybe just a step under that.
Maybe NP, which is a neighborhood professional, which is typically
Give me the ability to
that type
allow
of
like an
thing.
accountant's office, attorney, various other professionals in that building. So I'm not so strictly limited. I just
Okay.
appreciate your consideration.
Sure.
That's about it. Thank you.
Up next, we have Mr. Nill. Ah, there you are, right towards the front. Are the apples in yet?
Yeah, we're getting apples. We're getting apples from Bulgars. We don't grow any ourselves, but yes, we get apples in. Thank you, gentlemen, for hearing me. And those of you who are here, hear me about every 5 years whenever we review the master plan, because something about Nils Farm Market area, the 189 acres, that it changes every 5 years what needs to be done with it. And as I look at some of your qualifying statements in your program, you talk about buffers. You talk about the conservation zone being a buffer. I don't know what Nils Farm Market can buffer when we're three-sided covered by residential development already. It seems to me it's a misplaced statement. The employment campus that the county worked on some time ago, and even you in your last designation called it mixed use. I do not agree with the conservation. Yes, there's conservation ground on there. I don't care what it's zoned. It's going to be some conservation ground there just because it's wetlands, it's floodplains, and the like. And just because you all may change it to conservation does not mean that you take ownership of the Rails to Trails project from 27 East. That is a part of Nils Farm Market property. Now, am I threatening? No, I'm not threatening. I'm just throwing these things out. I have worked with mayors from Jerry Johnson on things on water, on sewer, on upgrades, all down through our farm. It seems like it makes no sense at all to take that prime area and move it to conservation. Yes, there's conservation ground there, but there's a lot of other potential. And the cars that's creating a lot of traffic around here, they sure wasn't caused by me. We haven't done any development on that property. I've been there on that farm walking the same dirt for 74 years. Even though I don't live there right now, I still go there every day. I think if you look at it, the conception of what you're approaching to do, I would hope that you would agree that that total conservation zoning is really out of step with what's going on around and what's planned to go on around. So I would ask you to reconsider that, and I would like to see it go back to either the mixed use or the employment campus and medium density. I think that's a more appropriate designation for that piece of property. We keep moving further and further from the center of town and taking in residential property. And yes, I guess I'm a fly in the ointment because we haven't sold yet. So, but I hope that's not held against me.
I appreciate that.
Because really, I could ask a lot of the people here who moved here since 1955 or 1960. I don't know how many, but I know it's a bunch of you.
All of them.
I know it's a bunch of you. You all started the problem. I'm being fictitious. You know what I'm saying. Whoever started moving into this area started the influx of traffic and all the other things. And if we stopped everything around Mount Airy.
What does the county have on you? Because you're not in the town, you're county property.
The county's got it, employment, campus, and medium density residential, and that's showed on page 87 of your own report.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm wondering why we're different. We'll have to discuss that, obviously.
Yeah. So I appreciate if you
Thanks for bringing
look
that
at that
to our attention.
and maybe, hopefully, make some changes. Because one day, there will be some changes. It'll have to be.
Sorry, Mr. Nils, just to make sure you're okay with mixed use or employment campus?
Yes,
That's your desire?
because when you look at the 66B, they talk about the employment, they talk about areas of light industrial or whatever, the employment campus close to major highways.
Yes, sir.
We got 70. We got 27 that can be upgraded to a 2-lane highway all the way to the north end of town. So,
Thank you.
Got a question here.
So the only question I was going to ask Mr. Neal is that I understand the county has you as mixed use right now. This thing's got feedback. Are you opposed to, if you were annexed into the town, to be conservation for now? Do you have a different use that you want to use for the property that we should take into consideration?
I'm a little bit like the fire company. I don't have any plans of doing anything. I just don't like to see it downzoned to the least value zoning designation.
Okay, that's a fair answer.
So that's the way I feel right now.
All right, thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we've got two more. Actually, these are both Roxanne Hemphill. You put Watersville Road and Wildwood Park 7. Okay. Well, then we had one person come in late, and I'll just take these two just to wrap up the night. And we had one person who asked, who passed on something else but still wanted to speak. So I'm going to let since I'm taking one new one, I'm going to let the other one go. Did Melissa Garner leave?
Yes, she did.
Okay. Oh, well, I was gonna. Okay. The other one came in late. Is looks like it's Marshall Payne Gasaway. Since we didn't have many lates, I figured I'd let this one in. Welcome.
So, thank you so very much. So I wanted to take a moment to circle back to the rezoning of the carnival grounds. And so I sat in the back, and during the break, I had spoken with Mr. Everett. And so I thought that this would be a prime opportunity to share something with each of you. One of the concerns that I had as I sat in the back, and I chose to not speak during the initial meeting, was that during the meeting when it actually did happen down in the town of Mount Airy that we had this initial discussion, there were quite a few individuals that spoke up about the rezoning of the carnival grounds. And I was quite surprised when I looked in the audience and didn't see that many individuals speak up. So I felt compelled to actually come forth and say a couple of things. As I prepared some comments, I actually had written them down, but I decided that I wanted to share them instead. One of the things that actually stands out to me is the fact that there was the notion of trust being thrown out. And I don't know that it's a distrust for the fire company. I don't know that it's the residents that distrust what's happening. But I think when you look at the information that was communicated, and I thought about really what that last gentleman had shared, there was a lot placed in terms of the budgetary matters regarding the fire company, particularly how much money was coming in, how much was going out, and then there was some back and forth in terms of what funds were coming from Frederick County, what were not coming from Frederick County, and so part of this compelled me to think about what were the underlying issues. More importantly, if it is really about the community, which everyone here is in support of the community, and there were some heartstrings that were torn at some point. You know, it's about trust, it's about trust. It's about trust on both sides. But it's also about, if there haven't been any challenges thus far with the carnival grounds being able to do whatever their functions are, then what's happening now that's changing that all of a sudden? So what is the clear and convincing evidence that's saying that this rezoning has to happen? If it is because of financial purposes, then that's fine. Then come forth and say that it's because of financial purposes and that's what needs to happen. However, if there have not been any issues thus far in terms of being able to utilize the land for purposes that who knows what they're being utilized for, then that's the real question. What are the underlying purposes? And let's not displace it on trust that the community doesn't have with the fire department. Let's not displace it on trust that we're thinking that there are behind the doors discussions that are happening. Let's just get to the heart and meat of what's actually happening. And so as someone who's moved to Mount Airy, I love the town that I moved to, but I think it's important that we not become emotional about this and that we think about really what is this all about? Because if it's about perhaps selling the land down the road, then financially, if that's a decision that the fire company has to make, then that's a decision that they have to make. And it's important that we understand that that's where this is rooted, as opposed to it being rooted in trusting one another. So I think that's really critical that we not tie on the heartstrings of it's about trust, it's about trust. I do trust the fire company, but I also question if there haven't been any issues thus far with the purpose of the building, the purpose of the land, then why is this all surfacing now? So I just wanted to share that information. And I am right there with you. I hear about the annexation because you know what, we live right on the corner, and I will tell you the first thing that happened when we moved to the Watersville area was my husband saw a cow, and he said, "Oh my gosh, we live in a neighborhood with a cow." And I said, "But you know what? We actually live in a neighborhood. That's the difference. And that's what makes Mount Airy very personable. And that's what makes Mount Airy very special." So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we have gone through our complete list. Any of the council have any questions or anything? Not seeing any or hearing any, I will adjourn this public hearing. Thank you for attending.
Okay.
Thanks. Very well run. Thanks, Tom. Well, fortunately, people were fairly civil.
The question I would have, if you want some changes, maybe we have to submit them the next meeting, right?
Yeah, I
council
would
meeting?
submit them very, very quickly in writing. My suggestion would be that...
Right.